Smut is all the rage right now. If you're on TikTok, Instagram, maybe you have a girlfriend that, you walk in, she quickly hides the book under the covers and acts like, I wasn't doing anything, but however you've heard of it, you've heard of it. Smut is all the rage for readers right now. What Smut basically is, it's books that have been written for the intended purpose of showing sexual, for the intended purpose of, providing literature. It's a lot of sex in the book. All right. It just is what it is. Edgy, whiny dudes online will call it corn for women, which, whatever, dude. And then, women will defend it online and say that it's real and it has its place in the book community. But regardless of your position on it, it's here to stay, okay? And smut is not to be confused with romantasy, which is also kind of all the rage right now, whereas smut kind of focuses on the, the boingo of it, and romantasy focuses a lot on world building and dragons and magic and stuff. They just have a little bit of spice sprinkled in there.
Spice. Pure, unrefined spice.
You've seen a lot of people be talking about smut online, and some people will rate it. They'll give little chili pepper ratings on just how, sexy the book is, which, is kind of funny to me because it's just, they'll post the rating and they'll be like, dude, I gave this 5 chili peppers. I got off so hard on this book, which is, that's fine. You do you. But I still thought of the question, right? The people that have been mostly into smut lately have been women. That seems to be the demographic for smut online. And so I had the thought, I was like, is there smut for men? Is there sexy books that are written particularly for the male gaze? And so I went online and I asked the question. I was like, do you recommend any male gazy smut books? And what I got back was not male gazy smut books. Actually, the top comment on the post that I posted was just go read manga. Just read manga. Manga. Whatever. But then there was also other books that were mentioned. A Call of Fate, I'm pretty sure, was another one, which is a Persephone and Hades retelling, but from the POV of Hades, which I read a little bit of, and it is not meant for men. It's just to spice things up and to, put it from a different perspective. It's still meant for the ladies. Another suggestion I got was Hooked, I think, by Emily McIntyre, I believe. And it is another retelling of Peter Pan, which is from the perspective of Captain Hook, and it tells the story of Wendy and Captain Hook, plowing the poop deck, if you will. But yeah, I imagine, that's just so funny to me. I just imagine Wendy showing up to Neverland and looking around and being like, what are all these kids doing here? Hey, you wanna kill these kids and then maybe bone later? Captain Hook's like, arr. I'm pretty sure that's how the book goes. But regardless, that's not for men either. It has the Hook's perspective, but it is still very much intended to be viewed and consumed by women. And again, I don't mean to genderize. Obviously, there's a lot of male presenting and men out there that can enjoy these kind of books. But as a straight white male myself, I know, boo. I asked the question, is there and can there be any books? And I know what you're thinking right now. No, there shouldn't be. And you know what I have to say to that? You're probably right. But I'm going to make this video anyway, and we're going to talk about what a smut book intended for the male gaze would look like. And again, I'm a straight man. I'm pretty sure that, man-on-man romance is really cool. It's all A-okay, but unfortunately, I don't have any experience wooing the same sex, so I'm going to talk about my experience, which is wooing 3 girls in my entire life, which is fine. But anyway, first thing we need to do in order to break all this down is look at what the internet calls tropes of smut books. There are a myriad kinds of tropes that these smut books adhere to. There is enemies to lovers, where you start out as adversaries and slowly over time you want to tear each other's clothes off, which is great. And then there's forced proximity, where for whatever reason you are forced into hanging around and being around this person for a time longer than you anticipated it. And over time you get closer and want to tear each other's clothes off. And then there's a bunch of just random other tropes like same bed and interracial and stepmother. And I am getting off track. But regardless, we're gonna use these tropes, okay, and we are going to apply them to what I think a smut book would look like for the male gaze, right? And we're gonna start out with trope number 1, which is the classic damsel in distress trope. For some reason, this just appeals to our caveman brain, like, ooga booga, girls need saving, me save girl. And then, you go to a cave and you slay the dragon, and the girl is so grateful that you had slayed this dragon for her that she says, take me now on this fresh dragon carcass. And you're like, unga bunga, me take you now. Like, some kind of play off that trope, I feel like, would be the classic kind of male gazy thing. Like, oh, I am big and strong and I can slay monsters and then get laid after. Man, I'm so cool. One book that I think does this kind of already, and I haven't read the series, but I played the game and I've seen the show, The Witcher, that is very much a very male-gazy thing to do. I feel like if you just kind of spice that up a little bit, started talking about the curvature of specific body parts a little bit more in depth, then you would have a smut book. Because, hey, a stoic, big, handsome, gruff dude travels the countryside with his buddy and slays monsters and has complicated relationships with a bunch of goth women. That sounds really cool, man. Really cool. So all you have to do is spice that up a little bit. But I feel like we run into the first problem here whenever you talk about male gazy books, because I know that it is a thing for male authors to describe women and women's bodies as the joke of they boobed boobily down the road. I feel like that is unfortunate, especially in a lot of older books written, before the 2000s. And it is something that we're just going to kind of have to live with because, the smut books that I have consumed, which I have in small doses, albeit, but I have consumed a smut book or two, I am happy to say. They definitely talk about male proportions in explicit detail. So you would have to talk about women's proportions in the same kind of amount of detail. So there's going to be a lot of boobs boobling, So just first trope, take The Witcher and have boobs boobling a little bit more. That's your first trope. Bada bing, bada boom. Now, the next trope I think is interesting because it already actually is a trope, and it was the most suggested book that I would read, which is just read manga, because that will be male smut, right? The harem. Like, there has been many different kinds of interpretations of this, and for some reason, it is very heavily represented in anime and in manga. And I feel like that is a classic thing. I mean, guys, so I'm told, want to sow their wild oats, and having, a bunch of women completely fawn over you and lose their freaking minds over you. But I feel like this trope would have to adhere to what Romantasy likes to do, which is they describe like the most average looking woman they possibly can, which is, oh, she's just, an average woman. She's not pretty. Like, no one ever glances at her except for this 800-year-old elven fae king. He wants her more than anything in the world, which I feel like it's the same trope, right? It's just average, everyday Joe, works in tech support and, a call center and comes home and he has 8 girlfriends. For some reason, guys just, people just like that. It maybe validates them, makes them feel warm and fuzzy. But I feel like that would be pretty good for the male gaze as well. But I don't want to just, sexify everything and say, hey, sex is the goal of all these books. Maybe there should be a little bit of plot. Maybe we should spice up the spice books. You know what I'm saying? Like, at least give us some tension, some conflict in here to really latch onto so we can feel about these characters, Which brings me back to Stepmom.
What are you doing, Stepladder?
Here, let me help you.
No, I'm just kidding. So let's say average everyday Joe is a prince. He is like third in line to the throne. He knows he's never going to be king. He's not as good as his brothers, whatever. But the king wants to marry him off to a kingdom to form an alliance. And he has to choose between 3 kingdoms because every kingdom would have the same amount of, benefit to whatever kingdom they're living in, I guess. But he has to choose between 3 women, right? And the women could have an archetype. You have the stereotypical like hot girl next door. Then you have like super mean goth mommy girl, and then you have like nerdy girl really into books, doesn't know that she's absolutely gorgeous, so you play into those. You have all 3 of these archetypal girls playing, and you have to the book slow burns, builds these relationships between these 3 women, and I feel like that's a very male gazy thing to want to do. I don't know, have 3 women that might not necessarily be into you immediately, but you have to kind of woo the women in their own particular way. And I don't know, guys like wooing women. I feel like that would be something they would enjoy. And I call that trope The Bachelor. And look, hey, I'm not going to make this all about men sowing their wild oats everywhere and wanting to bang every woman they see. You know, men can fall in love too, and we do, and we fall deeply in love. We have lots of emotions, all right? We got lots of emotions. I don't care what people tell you. You know, our daddies told us to keep that down, but I still cry sometimes. You know, whenever I watch Finding Dory. So anyway, we're going to get into the final trope I was thinking here called the Princess Bride trope. It is the trope where we are deeply just head over heels in love with a woman. She gets captured by a man and we have to get powerful and strong in order to save her from the clutches of that man. And of course it plays into the damsel in distress thing a little bit, but it still plays on that male fantasy of like bettering themselves. Have you ever had a man friend get out of a relationship? You know what the first thing they do is? They go to the gym because they think that, you know, if they get strong, then their girlfriend will take them back. And they never do. But for some reason, that's the trope, you know? Guys are like, okay, well, me go gym after a girl break heart. So I feel like playing off that trope a little bit and being like, my true love has been stolen from me. I must better myself, must go to gym, get super strong, train in sword fighting, you know, become the Dread Pirate Roberts and beat Andre the Giant and get my girlfriend back. And I feel like that is kind of playing to a male fantasy of like, I must get stronger and be a better man in order to woo her from a lesser man. You know, that I don't make the rules. This just is what it is here, man. All right. Don't judge me. There you go. We got our three tropes. All right. We got the damsel in distress, unga bunga. We got what I call the bachelor, which is like a harem, but you know, make it a little classy. All right. And then we got the Princess Bride, the must save my eternal love from a lesser man. But then that begs the question of what kind of audience is there for male smut books? I feel like even the smut books that were being written specifically for the male gaze would still be kind of consumed by people who consume the other smut books, because I don't know if there is a high demand for guys to want to read these books, because, you know, the saying goes that men are visual creatures, whatever the hell that means. Because I don't know about you, but when Stephen King, you know, he writes about a girl boobling down the road, my pants get a little tighter. You know what I'm saying? All I'm saying is that, you know, guys can get a little hot and heavy when it comes to literature as well. I definitely get super turned on whenever I open a new book and smell that fresh, like, oaky, old bookstore smell on my nostrils and just breathe it in. And yeah, I should end this video now. Thanks for watching. I'm Turner Page.